One of the elements that bring unique excitement to MMA is the impossibility of predicting the outcome of a fight, when two evenly matched fighters are scheduled to lock horns in the cage. However, let's not forget that this is an entertainment business, so we've witnessed promoters creating mismatches where one athlete completely outclasses the opponent. Whether the reason was to build a new star off of a legend's name or simply entertain the audience with a freak show that nobody asked for. From one-sided beatdowns to bouts that didn't make any sense, let's revisit the worst matchmaking mistakes in MMA history. And if you guys enjoyed this video, please subscribe and be the force behind our push to 10,000 subscribers. Let's do this. Jon Jones versus Chael Sonnen.
I haven't lost at light heavyweight since 2005.
Okay.
Longest undefeated streak in the company today, 8 years.
Why would anyone give a title shot to a guy who hasn't fought in that division for 8 years? Chael Sonnen's gift for trash talking granted him 3 UFC title shots, 2 against Anderson Silva at middleweight and 1 at light heavyweight against former champ Jon Jones. When Sonnen faced off against Jon Jones, many MMA fans felt he was out of his league. The circumstances leading to their fight were unusual, with Dan Henderson pulling out prior to Sonnen's shot at the belt, setting the stage for a mismatched title defense. Jones dominated the fight, easily overpowering the bad guy and finishing him with strikes in the first round. Despite Chael never really being in contention, the bout was almost stopped due to Jones breaking his toe, which turned out to be the most significant damage he sustained. This mismatch was the result of Sonnen's charisma and fortunate timing. While it made for an interesting storyline, the outcome was never in doubt. Randy Couture versus James Toney. The UFC isn't known for doing freak show fights, but in 2010, they made a little exception. At UFC 118, the former boxing champion James Toney made his MMA debut despite having no prior experience in the sport. His opponent? None other than the legendary Randy Couture. The fight didn't last long. Couture wasted no time dragging the boxer to murky waters, where he quickly mounted him and started raining with punishment. The canvas was a whole different dimension for the poor Toney, who looked like a fish out of water. Halfway through the first round, Couture locked in an arm triangle choke, giving Toney the option to tap or nap. BJ Penn versus Yar Rodriguez. Time waits for no one in MMA, a truth that was painfully clear in BJ's comeback fight against rising star Yair Rodriguez in January 2017. 7 years prior, this bout might have been a different story. However, by 2017, Penn was a shadow of his former self. Before facing Rodriguez, he had already suffered a decisive loss to Frankie Edgar in their third fight back in 2014. This left Penn with 3 years of ring rust to shake off before stepping into the octagon with his much younger opponent. Unsurprisingly, Rodriguez dominated the fight, showcasing his skills with flashy kicks, almost looking like he was in a sparring session. After battering him badly in the first, the Mexican put Penn out of his misery in the second round, reminding everyone why this sport is for the young. Kazushi Sakuraba versus Shinya Aoki. Kazushi Sakuraba is widely regarded as one of the greatest fighters of all time, but by 2015, he was way over the hill. After being inactive since 2011 and coming off 4 consecutive losses, the Gracie hunter faced the submission maestro Shinya Aoki at the inaugural Risen show. Aoki didn't waste time with appetizers and went straight to the main course, quickly taking Sakuraba down and controlling the fight in his own realm. Midway through the first round, Aoki secured a victory, showing Sakuraba the retirement door. Fedor Emelianenko versus Zuluzinho. The match might seem a bit one-sided whenever you have the possibility the greatest heavyweight mixed martial art of all time is in the ring. This was perfectly illustrated in Fedor's 36-second dismantling of the Brazilian giant, Zuluzinho. Standing at 6'7" and weighing over 400 pounds, Zuluzinho looked like the final boss of a Resident Evil game. However, his colossal size did not help him against Fedor's superiority and skill set on the feet. With the nuclear left hand, Fedor sent the big man to the canvas. The Russian smelled blood and went for the finish, giving the referee no other option but to save the Brazilian from receiving a one-way ticket straight to the Dead Sea. Conor McGregor versus Donald Cerrone. After losing to Khabib Nurmagomedov and Floyd Mayweather in boxing, the UFC seemed concerned that fans might question Conor's legitimacy as an elite competitor. The Notorious hadn't won a fight in 4 years leading up to this bout, so their solution was to sacrifice Donald Cowboy Cerrone, who had suffered 2 consecutive knockout losses, was nearing his late 30s, and was the most winnable match for the Irishman. As expected, McGregor quickly dispatched Cerrone by knockout in less than a minute, which for a moment gave his fans hope that their favorite fighter was back in the title race. Matt Hughes versus Gracie. Traveling back to UFC 60, the main event showcased then-champion Matt Hughes against former UFC Tournament 1 winner and MMA pioneer Royce Gracie. Interestingly, the bout was not for Hughes' belt, a decision that seems even wiser in hindsight. While Gracie had revolutionized jiu-jitsu and introduced effective submissions from various positions, by 2006 he was well past his fighting prime. Hughes dominated the fight, showcasing his superior athleticism and well-rounded skill set. From the moment the bell rang in round 1, Hughes made Gracie appear fragile and ineffective. Hughes quickly took Gracie down, delivering a barrage of punches to the legend, who was trapped face first on the canvas until the referee stopped the contest at 4:39 into the first round. The message was clear. Gracie represented an outdated era, surpassed by the more athletic and versatile fighters of the new generation. Hughes epitomized the next generation of fighters, and his dominant performance against Gracie emphasized that point. Petr Yan versus Teruto Ishihara. Teruto Ishihara was once seen as a promising contender in the UFC's featherweight division. However, by 2018, his career had hit a rough patch, leading him to drop down to bantamweight in an attempt to bring his shine back. Unfortunately, his first fight in the new weight class ended in defeat, extending his losing streak to 3 fights, including a loss to the MMA semi-god Artem Lobov. His next challenge was Petr Yan, who was already being seen as a potential future champion, boasting an impressive record as the ACB bantamweight champion. In their clash, the Russian showed everyone why his striking is as deadly as an AK-47 rifle shot, brutalizing Ishihara within the first round. Mirko Cro Cop versus Dos Caras Jr. Ranked as one of the worst matchmaking mistakes in MMA, we have a spectacle that pitted a Mexican lucha libre pro wrestler with minimal MMA experience against one of the heavyweight division's all-time greats. To emphasize the absurdity of the situation, Dos Caras Jr. opted to wear his pro wrestling mask during the fight, highlighting the stark contrast between the two fighters. Cro Cop dominated the bout, delivering a relentless beating before ending it with one of his signature head kicks. Dos Caras Jr. continued his MMA career, amassing a respectable 9-5 record. However, he will forever be remembered as the mass fighter on the receiving end of Cro Cop's head kick during the Croatian's reign in Pride's heavyweight division. Sage Northcutt versus Cosmo Alexander. One championship signing of former UFC prospect Sage Northcutt seemed aim at making a statement about their fighter's superiority over the UFC's. They matched Northcutt, still a young prospect at the time, against a former kickboxing champion with a 7-1 MMA record. In a swift and brutal fashion, Alexander knocked out Northcutt in just 29 seconds with a powerful right hand, leaving him unconscious. The devastating blow resulted in 8 fractures in Northcutt's face, preventing him from competing for over 4 years until his return in 2023. Vitor Belfort versus Kevin Gastelum. This fight falls into a similar mismatch category as Penn versus Rodriguez, pitting legends against younger, rising stars. Both Penn and Belfort are iconic fighters who, at their peak, dominated their respective weight divisions. Gastelum, while facing setbacks in his UFC career, notably with weight-cutting issues at 170 pounds, posed a significant challenge to Belfort with his youth and skill set. At nearly 40 years old, Belfort had already suffered 3 consecutive technical knockout losses prior to facing Gastelum. As expected, Gastelum dominated the fight, ultimately knocking out Belfort in the first round. While Belfort has 1 fight left on his UFC contract, the mismatch against Gastelum strongly suggests that his days as a contender are behind him. The outcome was not surprising, but it was still tough to watch a legend like Belfort take such a devastating loss. Yuji Nagata versus Mirko Cro Cop. Yuji Nagata was a pro wrestler from New Japan Pro Wrestling who was offered the chance to explore the uncharted waters of MMA. Despite limited training in the sport, Antonio Inoki included Nagata in one of his New Year's Eve shows, matching him against the deadly Mirko Cro Cop, who was 1-0-1 at the time. Cro Cop's record might have seemed modest, but he was already renowned as one of the greatest kickboxers worldwide. The whole spectacle lasted 21 seconds, when Mirko sent the Japanese wrestler straight to oblivion. CM Punk versus Mickey Gall. In a matchup that was heavily lopsided from the start, CM Punk, with no prior MMA experience, faced off against Mickey Gall, who entered the bout with a 2-0 record and promising prospects at just 25 years old. Despite Punk's training at Duke Rufus's gym in Milwaukee, it was evident that at 38, he wouldn't be able to master MMA in a year or two. The fight unfolded as expected, with Gall dominating the bout and finishing Punk just minutes into the first round. Since their mismatch, Gall has continued to build a relatively solid UFC record, while CM Punk had one last bout in the organization, from legends past their prime to inexperienced fighters thrown to the wolves. These instances serve as harsh realities of matchmaking in the world of mixed martial arts. Thank you for tuning in, fight fans, and we can't wait to see you in the next one.